So, I'm going to start with a very simple question. Who are you? We're not going to get very philosophical, but instantly we'd start probably with your name. Why? Because in society, this is your identifier. This is what enables you to stand out from the crowd, right? I'm sorry to pop your bubble, but if you have a fairly common name, you're probably not unique. If you're named John Smith or Paul Brown, we quickly understand that the name alone is not going to do the job. So, okay, what's our next option? Well, the second layer of who you are is your body. Your fingerprints, your iris, retina, face, voice, all of those biometrics are constantly being used to define who you are. Face recognition is everywhere. Automated border controls check your fingerprints. And even the brand new smartphones, they look for blood flow in your veins to assert that you are the owner of the phone. But is that it? We're really just defined by a name tag and a set of physical attributes? Not really. We're human. And what makes human identity infinitely richer and more complex is that last layer that is hidden. And it's your personality, your tastes, your behavior, your passions, your addictions, everything that makes you who you are, everything that is not instantly visible, but unveiled to you one layer at a time as you get to know someone. So as you can see, a very simple question as, who are you, can give rise to many multiple answers, which are all extremely complex. And now the real question is, if we take that idea of identity, so a set of attributes that uniquely identify you, how do we translate that concept online, on platforms like Google, Facebook, Netflix, YouTube, Amazon, what we're using every day? What you're going to see is that each of those platforms has a very specific way of understanding you, perceiving you, in order to redefine your digital identity every time you interact with those platforms online. So to really grasp the concept of digital identity, which is not obvious at first sight, we need to go back to the beginnings of the internet. So back in the 90s, at the very beginning, people were really hiding behind the usernames. Even Google didn't know who was behind the pseudonym. It was completely anonymous. Why is that? Because initially the internet was just for looking for information, and people were just sharing knowledge. Actually, the first network of connected computers was between universities for teachers to share their research. So we were just data consumers that was freely available online. But since the emerging of platforms like personal blogs, Twitter, MySpace, and at a greater scale, Facebook, we started sharing a lot of very personal information online. And the more we were interacting, the more we were leaving hints behind about who we were. And for those social media platforms, e-commerce, businesses, that was just free data. And trust me, they became incrementally excellent at scraping that data and making sense of it. So you really understand, and they really know you extremely well, probably much better than you know yourself. And I'm going to show you how with a very simple example. Let's take Amazon. Say that you and I are looking for an iPhone case, okay? So we go and we type iPhone case. Number one, we're not going to get the same results, simply because Amazon is putting forward the items that I am most likely to buy. And surely we don't have the same tastes. And how did they know that? Well, simply based on my previous search history, the items I previously bought, my average scrolling time, how long I spend on each item. They really understand what brands I prefer, the colors I prefer, obviously some weird colors for mine, even the materials I like. Okay, so that's number one. Then, okay, I'm looking at all the products, and none of them is available for Prime delivery, meaning I can't get one tomorrow or even today. And I'm a very cheap person, so I'm not going to spend 1 cent on delivery. So that's fine. I keep window shopping, and I end up not buying. Next day or a couple of days later, I come back, and magic, one of the items is now available for delivery. What happened? Is that just luck, or they just had it in stock? Not really. Nothing happens by luck with Amazon. What they did is that they really understood that I didn't buy because there was no delivery. So what they did, even if I didn't order anything, they preemptively shipped that product to the local warehouse next to me, so next time I would come, Boom, it would be available, they would trigger purchase. And really, even for companies to the scale of Amazon, who are giants, it's really expensive to ship a product and keep it in stock, even if there's, especially when there's no order. But their prediction model is so accurate that it ends up being profitable for them, and I am the proof of that. Some people say that even in the future, Amazon will know us so well that they will directly ship the products to us without us having to buy them. But the return rate will be so low that they will just end up saving money on stock. And that's one of the biggest problems with e-commerce right now, maintaining stock. And that's how confident Amazon is about how well they know you. And that's just going to be better and better for every online business you're using. So what Amazon knows about me is what we call a partial identity. So they know some of my tastes, they know some of my behavior, but they don't have the full picture. They don't know me like my parents, otherwise that would be pretty scary. So, and that's the same for every other online business you might be using. Your bank has a partial identity of you. They know how much you spend, how much you tend to save or not, and they give you a credit score, which is a translation of the risk they take every time they lend you some money. And same goes for YouTube or Facebook. They just grasp as much data as they can and try to build their own perception of you to better understand your needs and then sell you more and faster. And that's how every single digital identity has been built since the beginning of the internet. But now this model is being challenged, mainly because people start to raise concerns about privacy. How much data do they have about me? How are they using that data? Who are they sharing that data with? Before GDPR, so General Data Protection Regulations, we didn't know, we had no clue. But now, companies have to reshape their model in order to comply with those new regulations. For example, now, you can go on Facebook and download all the data they know about you. I did it, and frankly, reading the conversation I had when I was 14 is pretty embarrassing, but you can do it. So now you have a lot of your personal information that is out there online. Just accept it, it's the reality. But did you ever wonder if it was safe? Where is it stocking that data, which is very personal? Well, it's not. It's only until major data breaches occurred that people started to realize that data security cannot be taken for granted. And just so you really understand the scope of the issue, I'm going to go through a couple of examples so you really understand. Number one, I'm going to start with our long-term friend, Facebook. You may have heard about it, but last year we discovered that a company called Cambridge Analytica has had access to the personal information of 87 million Facebook users. 87 million. How will you tell me? Simply because Cambridge Analytica is a political consulting firm. So what they do is that they run data analysis during political events. For example, Donald Trump's election, they were trying to understand what were the mechanisms underlying the election. And they had an application on Facebook called Your Digital Life. And whenever you signed up for it, not only did it catch all of your information, but also the information of all of your friends who didn't know anything about it. And all that data shipped back to Cambridge Analytica. What they did with it, they built psychographic profiles. In simple terms, that means that they could understand and derive your values, your opinions, your behavior, your attitudes, and the aim was to understand what kind of advertisement was most efficient to persuade you to attend a political event or to vote for some candidate. And yes, this is called political manipulation using your digital identity because Facebook was not able to effectively protect your personal information. You thought that was bad, and it is really bad, but there's way worse. In 2017, there's a data analysis company called Equifax, which was victim of a cyber attack. And what happened is that 150 million identity records were leaked. And when I mean identity records, I'm not talking about just Facebook messages or pages that you liked. I'm talking about credit cards, social security numbers, email addresses, phone numbers, driver licenses. And the worst about it is that this attack went completely unnoticed during 76 days. That's more than 2 months. And identity records were being leaked. So right now, you have pieces of identity of dozens of millions of people, mainly American, who are now, that are now completely freely available online, probably on sale or already sold on the dark web. And that opens the door to real-life crimes like identity fraud. Someone taking your driver license, committing a crime, and you are accused for it. So the really important point here is that right now, you have your identity. So pieces of you, your information, a bit everywhere. You don't know how they use it, you don't know who owns it, and you don't know if it's safe. So the main issue is how can you redefine that digital identity so that, number one, it's centralized, it belongs to you, not to some company. And number two, how can you make sure that you control who you share it with, and you have full ownership of who you are online? Well, the answer might come from a cool piece of technology. You probably have already heard of it. It's called the blockchain. So I'm not going to go into deep detail into how the blockchain works because, number one, I would lose myself, and number two, that would be way too long. But the most important thing to remember is the security and anonymity it brings to the data you store there. So imagine that all of the data you store there is encrypted, meaning nobody can access it but yourself, which is great. That's what we want. But back to reality, when you're browsing online, you're still using Google, which for obvious reasons is not that great for data privacy. But there are companies which are trying to build a new experience for browsing online using blockchain technologies. How it works is that basically they build some sort of matching platform for buyers and sellers. Concretely, you go there and you have your identity on the blockchain. You decide what information you want to share with the browser. And then the browser uses that data that you gave it and gives you the best result using that specific data. So the reality is that you are able to get the results you want using the identity you want to convey to other people because you're fully owner of that identity. Another very interesting aspect is that you can trade your data online. Because let's think about it. The main business model of companies like Facebook or YouTube is what? Is to take your data, sell it to advertisers so they can better target you or spam you with advertisements. And they're making billions out of it. How much are you making from your personal information? Zero. We agree on this. If you use blockchain-based platforms, the number one thing you can do is, because you're owner of your data, no one can access it, you can decide to share it with specific people, and if they want to access it for any commercial use, they pay you back in cryptocurrency. Not necessarily Bitcoin, but there are plenty of cryptocurrencies existing, and this is the existence of a new economy around data, and that completely flips the coin around how advertisers are using data. You are owner. But there's still one issue that we haven't quite addressed yet, and it's because right now, if we have the solutions we have today, is that each of those companies, Facebook, YouTube, they have their own, let's say, blockchain-based identity platform. But we want one that follows you, and those companies have to adapt to you. You don't want to spread that information everywhere. You want to own it in one place. And the solution comes from the government. So let's imagine right now, imagine a world where directly upon birth, the first thing that happens is that for an individual, the name, date, time of birth, parent information, and other data is stored on the blockchain. Okay? So you're owner of it, not the government, not a federal state, not a private company, you. Then you can use that identity to get social security, healthcare, register for school, open social media account, open a bank account, sign contracts online, because that identity, you use it on different platforms. And that completely redefines the way we conceive passports and national IDs, because everybody would comply with your single identity. Well, the good thing is that we don't need to imagine, because that already exists. The small country of Eastern Europe, Estonia, has already implemented, and is the first country in the world to have implemented blockchain-based solution at government level. What that means is that they have what they call an e-citizenship program, so they have their own ID card, which is literally just a small card with a chip, like a credit card. And that gives them access to their full identity on the blockchain. For example, their full healthcare registry system is on the cloud. They access it with their ID card, and they see all of their data, who accessed the data, when. If someone accessed it and were not authorized, you can prosecute them. And that small card, really, it's just a credit card, because it holds all of your identity. They use it as a travel ID in Europe. They use it as a social security card. They use it as an ID for banks. They use it for many other purposes. They can file taxes. They can sign contracts online. All of this done with one card. And a lot of different countries are working in that direction. We have Dubai, we have the US, India, Serbia. They're all trying to build this centralized identity system that is owned by the citizens. And we're really on the verge of a technological revolution that will deeply reshape who we are online. Thank you very much.